Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. My name is Noah Hanson, here with Kevin Peterson. We are your co-hosts for your podcast today. One of the reasons we're so grateful for you listeners is because when you listen to our podcast and when you share our content with your family, friends, and loved ones, that allows for our voices to reach more listeners, more ears, and more positive transformations can be made into people's lives. If you'd like to know another outlet where you can go on our website, inanewway.com, check out our Patreon page where you can connect with the Pay It Forward program. There's 3 tiers, but you can also donate whatever monthly amount or weekly amount you would like to on that Patreon page. And that is all contributed into what Kevin and I like to call the Pay It Forward program. It's a system where all the donations that we receive are being paid forward to help families who are in need. And if you'd like to know more about that Pay It Forward program, you can find information on that on our Patreon page on each one of the tiers set up there. You'll also have access to free merchandise when you sign up for those monthly contributions. If you'd like to reach out for benefits through the Pay It Forward program, just email Kevin or I at oicadvantage@inanewway.com. So this podcast is on the power of gratefulness. And gratefulness really is authentically powerful. It's shown not only in our personal lives, relationships, and between the connections we have with all people, but it's also shown scientifically in our bodies, in our biology, in our brain chemistry. And it's a very powerful thing to be talking about here, Kevin.
Well, yes, it is, Noah.
What are you most grateful for today? That's my question.
Emotional soundness and the education of applying what I know.
Sounds to me like you're just grateful for being you in an authentic way. And that's what we want for you too, listeners. Hopefully this podcast will give you some golden nuggets that you can take with you once you leave this podcast and apply them to your life immediately so that you can end up just like Kevin, where he's grateful every day for being exactly who he's meant to be. Isn't that right, Kevin?
By God go I say.
Amen. Amen. And yes, there are lots of godly teachings on the power of gratefulness.
Absolutely.
There's ancestral teachings, there's biblical teachings, and now there's even scientific studies that have been done. And we're going to share a few of those with you today. If you'd want more of that type of link, we'll have those links in the description box for you to have more information on all of that. To start it out here, Kevin, the most important thing about being a grateful person, being gratuitous as well, because it goes hand in hand, giving and receiving in the power of gratefulness. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the one most critical point that we can make to start off this podcast?
That what you put behind the emotion becomes the intent.
What you put behind the emotion of feeling grateful?
What you put behind the emotion creates the intent. So if you're grateful, if you're happy, if you're excited, if you are delighted, if you're inspired, all those things have to come from a source, have to come from somewhere other than just you.
Indeed, indeed. And many of the things that cause us to be ungrateful are coming from outside of us, but it's something where we've talked about this in multiple other podcasts, where if you are allowing yourself to go with negative track thoughts, negative track emotions, then that will actually become, it'll assimilate you, and you'll be that in expression, and that doesn't benefit your life or anyone else's.
Now, when growing up, I was blessed to be able to have grandmothers and grandfathers that actually took the time to be able to talk with us and spent time with us. And in that process, what was really nice is that I got to learn about my ancestry. I got to be able to learn how people remained grateful and appreciative, even in the toughest times of a Great Depression and a Great Recession, and moving forward from there.
Yes, because your grandparents lived through the Great Depression.
Yes.
And that was a time when people really had to band together.
It was. And during that time, we had more time to be able to literally sit down, listen to each other, talk things out, because of how extreme things were. Almost everyone in the community had to be able to talk things out. So instead of it being a black versus a white issue versus an Italian versus a Jew versus this or versus that, we were all under one great umbrella of poverty. And during that Great Depression came a lot of what?
Well, you know, a lot of teamwork, I would say, in the community.
A lot of gratefulness, because what you gave to another living human being sustained their life for them to one day then repay you back on a day that you may need it. And so there was a lot of teamwork. There was a lot of unity. There was a lot of soundness in what was going on, because we were all at one particular point dead equal in the whole pay and the whole financial depression of things.
Yeah, definitely a humbling experience for many people at that time, I'm sure. And as far as people who are being racist, people who are being discriminatory at that time, I'm sure it was much tougher for them to get through even the depression, because they didn't have that ability or that acceptance to be able to accept their neighbors who they could gain some positive resources from at the time.
Well, in history, during that time, even the most racist of people ended up basically keeping their mouth shut.
Yeah, out of disparity, I'm guessing.
Well, moreover than that they were realizing that they were encouraging a further depression and recession with their own vocabulary. Because when they were voicing their opinions and their thoughts and their feelings, they were starting to get abandoned. So imagine people being racist, becoming abandoned in a recession and a depression. Nobody wanted that to be able to happen. And so what ended up happening is those people then reverted to violence, for which a lot of people end up becoming killed, because they couldn't ever possibly humble themselves or be grateful enough to be able to not only listen, but to be able to receive help from those people that were in the same condition, same position as they were.
Yeah, hard times definitely have a way of bringing out the worst in people, for sure. Bringing out the best in people in some cases, too.
Well, correct. But what that showed America and those that were traveling into America is that where two or more are gathered in Jesus' name, so is the church, so is the family, so is the family unit, so is the same mindset that we all have to eat. We all have to be able to do things. And everyone was on the same struggle wagon. And it was almost amazing, sad, but it was amazing to be able to see, lines around the block. And you're talking about big Chicago blocks, just to be able to get a morsel of food, a little bit of soup, a little bit of bread, And a lot of times it was potato soup, which was untasteful or over salted or over saturized with other things to be able to not be as tasty as it could be, because they're made in big vats, right?
Right. Yep.
And so
probably watered it down some.
So the women end up cutting a great deal of potatoes during this time. And the reason why the women end up chipping in to be able to do that is because they could be able to at least sneak a piece of potato into their mouth when the other people that were in charge weren't seeing, so that they could be able to keep themselves nourished while they were doing all the cutting of the potatoes, so that people can be able to then eat. So with all that being said, is that the reason why I took you back there is because my ancestors, my grandfather, my grandmother, would be able to tell us that when they had a dollar bill, they treated it like $1 million, because it was so rare, it was so uncommon for people to have cash currency of any kind, that people were literally beating people up just to be able to have a dollar. So fathom or imagine that, treating that same dollar bill like $1 million. But here you go today, to where if you have a dollar in your pocket, you laugh or you discard it or you throw it away. People throw more money into a wishing well than their own investments.
Yeah.
And then wanting to know what the problem is.
Right.
The whole thing with it is a wishing well can't get you out of debt, but you can. So, getting back to the power of gratefulness, Gratitude is strongly and consistently associated with greater happiness. Gratitude helps people feel more positive, relish good experiences, improve their health, deal with adversity, like what I was talking about earlier, and build strong relationships, right?
Yeah, and more than that even.
So psychology, going from ancestral, teaching about how money actually works and how people can bond together in a level of gratitude, of thankfulness.
Yeah, and the Depression isn't the only example of that happening.
Of course. But a example had to be set, right?
Yeah.
So from there, now we can go to biblically and we can go to scientifically, but the reason why I needed for the listeners to be able to know the true definition of gratitude or gratefulness is so that they can be able to get a foothold of what is truly authentic so that they can then go from there to be able to walk forward with gratitude, happiness, admiration for who they are, and learning the rest of this topic of information, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, imagine in the times that we live in today where it's nowhere near as hard as it was for many people, not everyone, but many people back in the Great Depression. Imagine reaching that same level of gratefulness for things coming into your life as the people back then when they were living in extreme poverty. Imagine being able to be that grateful of a person that you truly make all those types of connections regardless of people's level of poverty.
Mm-hmm. But now, you know, we've got the whole COVID-19 and that sort of thing and the bonding together with that situation.
Yep.
But what are the 5 benefits of being grateful? A lot of people can't even. And this is really a mind boggler to me, being a pastor, a life coach, you know, to be able to not be able to, when I'm on the streets talking with people, give me 5 examples of gratitude, of being grateful, right? And a lot of people really stutter because they're not living what they're wanting to receive in their life. They're just learning and then forgetting the rest until it becomes important, and then they implement as they go.
Yeah.
We have to learn to be able to implement as we're learning. Everyone can be able to get out of debt financially if they took the time to be able to learn, but our government has forced both men and women to be able to have to get jobs and then to have competition and then to be able to have no parents at home with having a guardian or a person appointed by them, a babysitter or whatever, to be able to teach their children how to be able to grow up. And then we wonder why we've got such scatterbrained children coming up in through the ranks. And the only reason why I can say that is because of not only personal experience, not only being able to listen to hundreds of other parents that have children in this environment, but to be able to know that we financially can't make it because we're not making enough for one person to stay at home. Or that other person has to be able to work 2 or 3 jobs so that one person can stay at home. So either way, the children lose, right?
Causes a lot of issues.
Right. So here are the 5 benefits of being grateful. Number 1, gratitude opens the door to more relationships. It really does. Because when you're happy-go-lucky, when you're feeling better, it just resonates from you. It's just like this silent, positive fog that just lifts from you, and people can be able to see you for who you truly are. Number 2.
That was very descriptive. I like that.
Yeah. Number 2, gratitude improves physical health.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we wanted to be able to lose weight, to be able to get skinnier, to be able to lose fat, to be able to do this, to be able to do that, but we never exercise our mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Our mentality is last because we watch mentors always talk about health being a physical thing, but it's got to be a mental thing first.
Correct. And there are many mentors in the physical training scene that do get that, and I've seen them out there too, but not everyone. And here's the whole thing: if you aren't extremely motivated by either the amount of fat that you see on your body, or you're not extremely motivated by, in my case, how skinny you are, then gratitude is the biggest motivator. And this is something I've experienced. Grateful people, and this is shown in scientific studies as well, by the way. And we'll have links in the description, like I said, if you want to find those. There's a phenomena where grateful people with a higher amount of gratitude in their lives, people who count their blessings, for example, are more likely to work out. They're more likely to get up and actually do that and take the time. And the reason for that being, in my personal experience, is when I wake up in the morning time's often when I have, right after I wake up, when I have time to be able to work out if I want to. If I'm waking up in the morning and I'm thinking about working out, I'm like, oh man, I wish I didn't have to do this right now. Then I'm so much more likely to not do it. But if I wake up in the morning and I'm grateful, I'm thanking God for life, I'm thanking God for the opportunity to even have the ability to walk, to move my arms, to move my head, to move all my muscles. And I'm grateful for the ability I have and the tools I have to actually get stronger at my disposal. Then I'm so much, if I think about that and I just resonate with that, I allow myself to thank God for it, I'm so much more likely to actually work out with that day.
But here is a step going deeper, Noah.
Okay.
And for the listeners, you'll really appreciate this. Is that when you wake up, you're physically exercising your right to awaken. From there, you then tell your mind that you must rise. So right there, mentally, you're in charge. Then from there, your body then follows what your mind commands it to do. So you're already in an exercise of state of mind.
Correct.
The very moment that you actually do decide to rise. From there, every step that you take is exercise, because you're exercising your right to go to the bathroom. You're exercising your right to go to the kitchen. You're exercising your right to be able to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do next, right? But exercise is a form of empowerment. Whether it's your right or your non-thought about right are two separate things. It's your right to be able to get up or to be able to stay asleep. But as soon as you awaken, you're awakening the righteousness in you to be able to see yourself through to whatever it is that you need to do for that day. So the first exercise that you'll always make in the morning when you turn off your alarm clock, what? You made a physical action.
Yep.
Right? So if you can do that, you can exercise. Right?
It's true.
So if you can hit an alarm clock, you can be able to hit the floor, or you can be able to hit the gym. And to be able to work out for 10 or 15 minutes. Now, the reason why I say this is because when you're already in the state of getting up, and if you have the enlightenment of positivity already radiating within your soul,
right,
then you'll want to be able to do it, to be able to continue to being able to keep yourself whole. Because from there, then you can be able to pop into the shower, get ready for the day, and be able to go about your life in a new way.
Yeah, and you'll look forward to feeling clean. You'll look forward to getting that workout in. You'll understand the motivation truly is there when you actually put the work in. But one great podcast to listen to, by the way, is called From Pain to Pleasure and Productivity. We did that podcast, and that covers in depth exactly what you're talking about there, Kevin, how to go from feeling upset, feeling wrong, feeling unmotivated about getting up and doing an action, and actually taking that step, crossing that threshold to be able to find the pleasure in the productivity.
Right. Now, getting back to the list, number 3 was gratitude improves psychological health. Now, number 4 is gratitude enhances empathy and reduces aggression. You can't be aggressive and enlightened and happy and bubbly all at the same time. There's no such thing as aggressive happiness.
Okay.
you're
That's
either
true.
happy or you're not happy,
That's true.
right?
Now, is there angry or frustrated
Yeah.
enlightenment
Well,
or enlightened states? Because here's the thing, Kevin. Here's the biblical.
Yes.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
And it comes from wisdom and knowledge as to where you have the negative and positivity, and I'll let you further explain that.
Yeah, well, you never cross a certain point getting out of control if you are truly an enlightened person. If you're resonating with what I like to call God energy or God inspiration, basically, is if you're resonating with the thoughts that God downloads into your mind, then you're never going to cross a threshold of being out of control and literally just causing pain for the sake of causing pain in people's lives. There's always a motive and always a positive one behind it. When you're reprimanding someone for doing evil, you can be frustrated about it. You know, you don't have to be all happy and enlightened while you're doing something like that. It's not a fun business to do, as you already know from your life experience in the military, Kevin.
There you go.
In the example that we have of Jesus flipping the tables in the temple, for example, and that's just one of quite a few that he was reprimanding Pharisees about. He didn't do that with no purpose in mind. He didn't do that as some outburst without prior thought about it. And if we're doing the same, if we're living up to that example, then we understand that we cannot allow ourselves to get out of control. But in order to be someone who walks in truth, sometimes reprimanding people is, in fact, necessary. It's just not an out of control anger. And in dealing with gratefulness, being a grateful individual, you will actually be able to connect with gratefulness in that situation too, because you are actually able to see how you as a whole and complete individual have more control than you once did. You can look at your past experiences in a new way, in a better light, and look at yourself in a new light. And you can also be grateful for the opportunity to teach others what is so drastically needing to be taught in that type of situation.
Yep. So, in number 5, and completing the list, is grateful people sleep better, improves self-esteem, and increases mental strength, for which I just mentioned above, and which Noah has just stated earlier. And the empowerment behind gratitude and being grateful is a step above being thankful. Gratefulness is a full-bodied experience, to where thankfulness is just a reaching out, shaking someone's hand. It's more of just a physical gesture.
Right, it can be superficial.
Yeah.
And gratefulness is something where you experience it and it's powerful. You can't really stop it from being experienced. It's an authentic, very natural reaction to certain situations.
And what does the Bible say about gratefulness? Well, in 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18, it says, "Rejoice always, pray continuously, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus."
Yeah, and that's powerful too, because it's telling you to perform an action of thankfulness. Give thanks in all situations, in all circumstances. If you're giving thanks, if you're practicing actually being thankful to people, even if at first you don't really feel the gratefulness there, having that action and performing that action, this is huge, Kevin, in gratefulness. Performing that action of thankfulness and practicing it is actually going to naturally cause you to get what it's called is neuroplasticity. It's going to cause your brain to naturally go in those types of grateful pathways more often. It's going to get you thinking about what you can do for other people more often, how you can show thankfulness and give gifts more often, and that naturally is going to make you more of a grateful person. This is extremely huge, because scientifically there is a certain way that you need to be able to understand if you're going to connect with gratefulness.
Yes, because gratitude is a powerful human emotion. By conveying and receiving simple thank you messages, we can truly derive the pleasure that we seek everywhere else.
So listeners, you've heard me talk about Heartmath Institute before. Heartmath is something that I am a what's called an at-heart facilitator. It just means I'm certified to be able to tell you about their type of research and their information. Heartmath Institute has got it down to a T exactly how you can create grateful feelings within yourself, how you can reach that point. It's all based on this certain phenomena or a certain state of heart and brain relationship. It's called heart-brain coherence. It's where your heart and brain are coherent in the heart rate variability. And that's a whole mouthful, but I can put some links that explain it better off my YouTube channel in the description for you to connect with. Basically, what Heartmath has shown is that when you are actually actively trying to think of things that you're grateful for, basically counting your blessings, but actually thinking of them, actually feeling, doing your best to connect with the feeling you had at the time that you received something that you're grateful for, thinking about a person in your life that you're grateful for. This, if you are able to meditate on that, which is just focused thought, if you're able to focus your thinking on those blessings and the feelings that you had when you had them, that allows you to actually connect with gratefulness. It allows you to literally, no matter what type of negative state of being, emotionally, physically, or spiritually you're in, if you do the work to be able to do that, and also there's added steps such as controlled breathing, then it's shown that you have the ability to, by choice, at any point in your life, connect with gratefulness just by doing that work. And you can do it for 5 minutes, and that will help. That will get the ball rolling, you know?
So to be able to bring this back full circle is, what are the 3 parts of gratitude? According to Dr. Robert Emmons, a leading researcher on the topic, there are 3 stages of gratitude. One is what Noah just said, recognizing what we are grateful for. Number 2, acknowledging it. And then lastly, third, appreciating it. In other words, appreciation is the final component and the last stage in the gratitude process for which Noah was covering.
Yeah, very, very interesting research there. And we'll have that link as well so you can see what he is doing in the field of gratuity. But it's a humongous field. It's actually a lot of research has been done on the power of gratefulness. And the reason that gratefulness is so powerful is because when you connect with gratefulness, you're actually you're opening the door, I should say, to all other positive emotions. Why do I say that? When you're truly, authentically grateful, it's a joyful experience. It's something like you were saying earlier. It's full-bodied. It's something that even produces heart transformations. It causes people from going from bitter and resentful to someone very loving and thankful. And when you're connecting with the gratefulness, though you can go about it in a less authentic way, such as when people are receiving a gift and they're like, no, I can't take that. I don't want it. And I'm going to feel bad if I receive this gift. That's not exactly what I'm talking about here. The door open.
Gratuity. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a limited version of it. You know,
absolutely.
It's a very, it can be very humble to do that. But it can also be something that's based on self-hatred or lack of self-esteem, something along those lines. And that can come from all types of different past life trauma or whatever it be that causes someone to feel that way about receiving gifts. But anyways, when you open the door to all the positive emotions, all the rest of the positive emotions that bring in those healing benefits, that is when you are authentically grateful for something and you actually feel not that you need to repay someone, but that you want to pay it forward, that you want to be someone who causes that feeling in someone else.
So people often ask me, Pastor, why is gratitude so important to God? That's why the Bible talks so much about thankfulness. It is one of the most powerful feelings God has given us the capacity to experience. Gratitude is an experience. Gratitude gives us greater joy and meaning and enhancing our spiritual lives. We should show our gratitude to God because He asked us to, but also out of a desire to be happy. And that's a lot of what Noah has been covering in his conversation with you, is that in order to be truly happy, you have to know where it comes from, where the source comes from, where that originated from. And that's so vital and important, because Noah is very good at being able to get you back to the source, because he's resourceful, right? So listeners, for those of you that don't know Noah like I do, he really goes to the root of whatever it is that is troubling people the most, and he has a fine way of being able to pluck the root out, to be able to either to be able to snuff out the negative, or to be able to keep the root well rooted, and to be able to give it nutrients through the positive words that we say and the positive actions that we do every day towards other people that love us in every way, right?
Yeah, and of course you've helped me master that, Kevin, because you are a master at going straight to the source. And the thing is, going straight to the source, that is a very deep conversation. And we are all out of time for this podcast, actually, listeners. We appreciate you tuning in. But one last golden nugget I want to give you before we leave you here is that gratefulness can come from an outside experience. It can come from someone giving you a gift. It can come from someone even saving your life. But gratefulness is also something that can actually be reinforced and built up within your own self by your own personal choice. No one else is help involved besides God, because God helps in all things, of course, all things positive. But if you are alone at this time, you don't have people to connect with, a therapist that you're seeing to be able to help you understand gratefulness. All you need to understand to get started being more grateful of a person is you need to start to understand that you are blessed and count your blessings. You need to understand that the negative experiences that might be holding you down emotionally right now are actually something that you can be grateful for, but you need to understand how to be able to do that. Understand, listeners, that every hard experience that we go through, if we get through it, it wasn't meant to kill us. We're actually meant to survive through it. We're meant to be stronger because of it. And that is one of the main sources of gratefulness that I have for the negative experiences I've had in my life. Kevin, you know this. Some of the listeners may not know this, but if I briefly introduced it on the Introducing Your Hosts video that we did. In 2017, I took a hitchhike, and it ended with a major injury that left scars all over my body. And many people would be held down emotionally by this. Many people would be very sad and maybe even depressed because of having all these scars, and they're not pretty, Kevin, but they are fading. Thank God for that. But when I realized that I woke up in the hospital and I had all these scars, one thing I did not struggle with was the acceptance of those injuries. And the reason is because I understood that what I went through to get those injuries, and it came more and more the further away from the actual event that I got. But I realized that I have more to be grateful for in being injured than I have to be unthankful for. And I realized that the only reason that I could ever be unthankful for this is if I wasn't in touch with the truth, if I wasn't in touch with how that has led me to where I am right now. And where I am right now is a great place to be. It's where I'm meant to be. That little tidbit of wisdom that I gained from many different people throughout my life, but it all accumulated. You especially, Kevin, helped me to do that. But all this understanding of, biology is backed up and reinforced, and you're made healthier by positive emotions has really helped me to stay motivated to, whenever I get down, whenever I've gotten down about the scars or the injuries, very, very serious, by the way, then I was in a wheelchair for a little bit. That was tough. That was tough for me being in a wheelchair, but that was mostly the lack of movement, I think.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, when I was getting down on myself, I did not let it stick around. I didn't allow myself to express that to many people at all. And the only reason I was able to do that was because of exactly what we've talked about on this podcast today, Kevin. So it's very powerful to understand that gratefulness is a choice, that gratefulness can stem from outside of yourself, but if you are able to connect with it by choice, it becomes all that much more powerful.
Yes, and basically what I did to be able to enable your own personal greatness of gratitude is I turned your scars into stars.
Amen. That's right.
And from there, you've only been elevated ever since then, because you don't look down in depression, but you look up to what you're really expressing, and that is the truth. And that's why we have this podcast called the Omnipresent Information Connection Podcast. It's turning scars into stars.
Amen, Kevin. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and we will meet you on our website, inanewway.com. Connect with our Patreon page and see all the benefits. The next podcast is going to cover all sorts of powerful information that has more to do with the power of gratefulness, but we'll reveal that title to you next week. Thank you for tuning in once again, and we'll meet you on the next podcast.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.